Now we're going to look at strategies for responding to your opponent's value. And this is very, very, very important because breaking your opponent's value is the most effective tactic you can take in a rebuttal. Breaking the value is stronger than anything in debate. And if you think about it, it should be obvious as to why. LD, after all, is a values debate. The value is the reason why someone's side should win. If your opponent is on the side of, say, free trade in a resolution, and he says, my value is prosperity, he's saying the reason the judge should vote for free trade is because it gets prosperity. And that's why, because that's valuable. Because prosperity, that's assuming that prosperity is something good. And that's why we should vote for free trade. If you can defeat that value of prosperity and show the judge, prosperity is not the thing we should try to strive for, your opponent's case falls apart. Because who cares if free trade achieves prosperity if prosperity isn't something we should strive for, or if it isn't the highest value in the round, and we should instead strive for your value. If you break the value, you completely destroy your opponent's logic, and there's no longer any reason logically for the judge to vote for your opponent, because the value is the reason why the opponent says you should vote for his side. So breaking the value is very, very effective. And there are several ways to defeat the value, several things to watch out for. The first thing you can watch out for is circularity, which is very effective. Circularity is very effective when it applies. Some of these might not always apply. They apply in some cases. You will usually be able to find at least one that applies in a given case. So circularity, this is very effective. Some people actually use a word from the resolution as their value. We talked about this a little earlier. So if they're on the side of free trade, they might say, my value is free trade. I'm on the side of free trade, my value is free trade. That sounds great, but the problem is this is circular, it's roundabout. The value is the reason for your side, right? So if your value is your side, then you're literally telling the judge, vote for free trade because of free trade. You should choose free trade because of free trade. You see the circle? Free trade goes to free trade, goes to free trade. It just goes around in a circle, and it doesn't make any sense. Vote for free trade because of free trade. If I told you that you should eat chicken feet because you should eat chicken feet, would you actually go out and eat chicken feet? No, you need a different reason. Circular arguments don't say anything. It's not enough to say you should value fair trade because of fair trade. That doesn't say anything. You need a different reason to value fair trade. You can't say that you want to value fair trade because of fair trade. Just as you can't say that you should eat pepperoni pizza because you should eat pepperoni pizza. It doesn't say anything. You need a different reason why you should eat pepperoni pizza. So this is a circular argument. When the value is the same as the side of the resolution, that is circular. And this is a very important fallacy because surprisingly many people commit it. In fact, surprisingly, not many people know about circularity. Sometimes their value, so this can be a very opportune time for you to use this because not many people know about it, but it is very effective. 99% of the times when I've used this in rounds, I've won the value clash, which is what we call the argument between the clash between your value and the opponent's value. Many times I've destroyed the value with this argument of circularity. Now, many times people's values, they may not be exactly the same as their side, but they're similar enough, so it's essentially the same thing, and it's still circular. So, I don't know, say that with free trade, someone runs the value of freedom, or someone runs the value of liberty. Maybe you could argue that free trade and liberty, they're close enough related where they're still essentially the same thing. And you could still potentially run circularity, that this is a circular argument, because the value is the same as the side, and so the argument isn't saying anything. And in fact, it's actually a logical fallacy. Circularity is a logical fallacy. And if you're not familiar with the term logical fallacy, a logical fallacy is basically a flawed argument. It's a type of flawed argument that isn't logical. So you can point that out too. So circularity is a logical fallacy. So that's the logical fallacy of circularity. And there are some instances of how circularity another example of a circular sentence might be saying, whatever is less dense than water will float, because such objects won't sink in water. Whatever is less dense than water will float, because such objects won't sink in water. If you really look at the sentence, you'll see this is circular, because the first part of the sentence is really saying that the last part of the sentence. Saying that whatever is less dense than water will float is the same as saying that such objects won't sink in water. This is another example of a circular argument, just to get the idea of what circularity is. So that's circularity. Now let's move on to the second way you can attack their value, which is subsuming. My value subsumes your value. And what this means is subsumes basically means include. So look out for whether your value includes your opponent's value. Does my value somehow include my opponent's value? You could argue my value is better because it includes theirs. So for example, say that we're in some kind of alternate reality where the resolution is about food, and someone has a value of protein and someone has a value of hamburgers. You could argue the value of protein subsumes the value of hamburgers because hamburger is a protein, so it's beef. So protein includes hamburgers and other stuff like bacon and hot dogs as well. So with protein, you not only get my opponent's value, but you get all the other proteins. You get bacon, you get hot dogs, you get pork, you get all those other types of things. It subsumes my opponent's value. A very common way of doing this is with the value of human rights. So people talk about human rights in LD a lot, and they usually define this as human rights are life, liberty, and property. Life, liberty, and property. Those are the three main human rights. So if you're running human rights and your opponent runs a value of life, you could say my value subsumes theirs because human rights includes life and a bunch of other things. So since my value includes theirs and all these other things, my value is better. It includes more things, including my opponent's value. My value subsumes or includes their value. Another argument you could run when it applies. The third thing you could do is run supersedes. My value supersedes my opponent's value. And basically this just means my value is just better than your value for whatever reason. You would come up with the reason in your debate. My value is just better. This is sort of an obvious example. So for example, say that someone has a value of winning the war and someone else has a value of winning the battle. Maybe we're talking about some resolution that has to do with armed conflict or something. So the value of winning the war versus the value of winning the battle. Isn't winning the war better than winning the battle? Of course. So winning the war supersedes my opponent's value of winning the battle. Something along those lines. You could argue your value is just better for whatever reason you think of. The fourth thing you can use sometimes is foundational. You could say my value is foundational to your value. What this means is that your opponent's value needs your value first. We can't even have my opponent's value if we don't first have my value. My value is foundational. We need my value first in order to even get my opponent's value. So my value is more important. It's the foundation. If we need it first, it's more important. So I guess an example of this might be say you have 4 wheels and then you have a car body, right? You could argue the 4 wheels are more important because without them we can't even have the car body. They're foundational, so that value is higher. A word of warning though, there is a way that there's a flaw with foundational because the opponent can sometimes flip this argument into something else, which we call a means to an end. And we're going to talk about that. This is very, very, very effective, especially in the region where I compete. This was used all the time, and everyone who did it pretty much won the value clash. So this is a very, very effective argument. So what this means is that if their value is a means, so if your opponent's value is a means to achieving your value, then your value is more important. In other words, their value is just a means to achieving your value, and your value is the end goal. It's a means to achieving the end goal of your value. That means your value is more important because your value is the end goal. And the argument here is that the end goal is the most important thing. Some people even argue that the definition of a value is the end goal. A value is the end goal that we want. And there are a few common analogies that go around to argue this. So there's this analogy of a grandma. Do you value the road leading to grandma's house, or do you actually value your grandma's house? Do you value the road leading to your grandma's house, or do you value your grandma's house? And most people would say they value their grandma's house. And so the means to achieving grandma's house is the road, and the end is grandma's house. And the road is just a means to achieving the end of the house. The house is more important, so the end is more important than the means. So this is sort of the means to an end. So the problem with this is this really flips foundational on its head. This is really the opposite of the foundational argument. The foundational argument is if it comes first, it's more important, right? If it comes first and it leads to something else, the thing that comes first is more important because it's foundational. Means to end is the opposite. It's saying if this thing leads to that thing, the end goal is more important because this is just used to get this, but this is what we really want. If this is just used to get this, the end goal, that's what we really want. That's the most important thing. That's the idea behind means to an end. And usually means to an end is even more effective of an argument than the foundational argument. Usually means to end will win. So be very careful if you do decide to run the foundational argument. So one example of a means to an end, you might say my opponent's value of safety is simply a means to achieving my value of human rights. When we're safe, that means our human rights of life, liberty, and property are protected. But the only reason we want safety is so we can then get human rights. Human rights is what we really want. That's the highest value. The end goal is what we really want. And this other value, my opponent's value, is just a means to get to my value. So his value isn't as important. Since mine is the end goal, that's what we really want. That's the highest value. So means to end is a very effective attack against your opponent's value. Another thing you can look at is vagueness. Some people are really vague about their cases. If you don't understand quite what your opponent is saying, they're just being really vague. Like maybe they're talking about justice, right? And they're saying we need to have justice, but they're not really explaining what that means or how that applies to the resolution, or they're not being very specific and they're just kind of being vague about it. You can point that out. You can say, Judge, my opponent's value is really vague. They're being vague about it. They're talking all about justice and they keep saying this, but they're not really saying anything. They're just being really vague. You can point that out and point out that their value is vague. There are problems with their value. If you notice any problems, actually, not only vagueness, but any problems with your opponent's value, you can go ahead and point that out. Okay, and the last thing you can do with the value, this isn't as much attacking them, but you can say my side achieves your value better. My side achieves your value better. So maybe your opponent presents a value of prosperity, right? And they say my side leads to prosperity, I should win. If you can say that, well, my side actually achieves your value, that can actually be used as an argument as to justify why you would win. It doesn't matter that it's their value, because the way LD works is you have the value, right? And whatever value it is, whichever side leads to that most important value is the most important side. If you can prove your side leads to your opponent's value, that still justifies you should win. Because then your opponent, you're actually shooting your opponents in the foot. Your opponent's saying maybe, okay, whichever side gets prosperity should win. My side gets prosperity. And then you say, no, my side gets prosperity. That justifies a vote for you. So you can argue I can achieve my value better. Another note, this works really well when you have the same value. Even if you don't have the same value, you can still argue, well, I can achieve my value better than my opponent can achieve his value. That's also another way of attacking, but more commonly, especially when you have the same value, if you can argue that your side upholds the value better than your opponent's side does, that's a very, very effective way to win the round. So those are some strategies for attacking your opponent's value, and I'm going to have a little handout and lecture notes that I'm going to put on the class website. In case any of this is confusing, you can review that, and that hopefully you'll get more familiar with with all of these strategies, which are all very important, which you'll probably use a lot in your debates. So in the next video, we're going to look at strategies for responding to your opponent's criterion and kind of dissecting that.